Okay, picture this. You're in an operating room, keyhole surgery, intense focus, right?
Absolutely.
You're guiding instruments through these tiny incisions, but you're looking at a flat screen. Your view is super limited. Depth perception is tricky.
It's a huge challenge, translating that 2D image back into 3D anatomy in your head.
Exactly. But I mean, the benefits are huge. Less scarring, faster recovery for patients, less trauma overall. We know that.
Definitely. But those visual limits, they're a major hurdle, even for really experienced surgeons.
Which leads us to the big question, doesn't it? How do we actually train surgeons for this? Especially with tech like robotics moving so fast.
Right. And that's where serious games are starting to make a massive difference.
Serious games. So not like, regular video games.
Well, they can be engaging like video games, but they're not just for entertainment. Think of them as really powerful tools for medical education and also for collecting data. There was a great study on this recently, actually.
Okay, so that's what we're diving into today. This intersection between human anatomy, deep anatomical knowledge, and these high-tech surgical video games.
Exactly. And it opens up this potentially transformative, really inspiring career path, especially for someone like you listening now who really understands the human body inside and out.
Yeah, this isn't just gaming. It feels like it's about the future of medicine and, crucially, your potential role in it.
So if you think about traditional surgical training, it has limitations, right?
Like cadaver labs.
Yeah, cadaver training is valuable, no doubt, hands-on experience. But there are ethical things to consider. Logistics. It's complex.
Hard to scale up, I imagine.
Exactly. You can't just get unlimited cadavers for everyone to practice on repeatedly. And then you have newer tech like augmented reality, AR, or mixed reality, MISR.
Which sound amazing, very futuristic.
They hold a lot of promise for realism, definitely. But replicating that sense of touch, tactile feedback, still a big challenge.
Ah, right. Feeling the tissue resistance.
Precisely. And the cost of implementing these really high-fidelity systems, it can be a significant barrier. We saw that mentioned in one of our sources.
Okay, so that brings us back to these serious games as a more accessible solution.
Yes, potentially very accessible. That study you mentioned earlier in JMR, the game they developed had really clear goals.
What were they aiming for?
Two main things. First, create something engaging that could actually show non-technical people the challenges of keyhole surgery. Like, what does the surgeon actually see? What are the difficulties?
So communicating the experience.
Exactly. And second, and this is really important, to collect actual data, quantitative data, on how a limited field of view affects performance on surgical-type tasks.
That kind of hard data must be valuable.
Incredibly. It's been tricky to measure reliably before.
And the game itself, how did they design it to capture those challenges?
Oh, it was quite clever, really. Built with HTML and JavaScript.
So like web-based,
Yeah.
super accessible.
Totally. Runs in a browser, no fancy hardware needed. And the gameplay itself honed in on key skills.
Like what?
Well, hand-eye coordination, you use the mouse to cut these virtual vessels precisely. Visual perception, too, they used low-contrast vessels so they don't just pop out. You have to look carefully, kind of like in a real surgery.
Okay, mimicking the visual ambiguity sometimes.
Right. And then the big one, the limited view, they used a spotlight effect.
A spotlight.
Yeah, you only see a small circle of the surgical scene at once. You have to constantly move the mouse, move the spotlight to build up a mental picture of the whole area.
Ah, so you're piecing it together in your head.
Exactly. They called it mental mosaicing.
Mental mosaicing, I like that.
And they had levels, of course. Level 7 was apparently the toughest 3 tangled blood vessels plus that really tight spotlight view.
Wow, so what did the study find? Did it work?
It really did. It engaged people who weren't surgeons or techs. And crucially, they found a statistically significant difference in performance when that field of view was restricted.
So it actually proved, with numbers, how much that limited view matters.
Precisely. It quantified the impact.
It's fascinating how this idea of serious games then connects to the broader concept of simulation, isn't it? Like what we saw from the Unreal Engine source. It's way beyond just making things look good.
Absolutely. Simulation fundamentally is about preparing for complex situations, training people, testing systems before you even build them.
A safe space to practice and fail.
Exactly. And powerful game engines like Unreal, they're designed for any kind of interactive experience, not just entertainment games. The tech used to make games immersive and responsive. That's incredibly valuable for building serious simulations, too.
Okay, so serious games are effective training tools. But here's the kicker for you, the listener with anatomy expertise. How do you actually build the virtual patient? How do you get that anatomical accuracy?
That's the critical question, because it's not just about programming. It fundamentally relies on deep anatomical knowledge.
Yeah.
Your knowledge.
So how do they do it? How do you go from, say, a patient scan to a virtual organ?
Well, the methodology we looked at from that PMC source is really interesting. It starts with real patient data DICOM files.
Okay, so CT scans, MRI scans, that kind of thing.
Exactly, the detailed medical images. That's the raw material. Then they use AI for automated segmentation.
AI.
Yeah, specifically something called NNUNet, working within a program called 3D Slicer. It's open source software for medical imaging. This AI can automatically identify and extract the surface data for like up to 104 different organs.
Wow, 104 organs automatic.
Pretty impressive, right?
Ooh,
It exports these as 3D models, usually STL files. But, and this is key, it's not perfect.
Oh, the human touch.
Exactly. That's where the medical experts, the anatomists, come in. They take these auto-generated models into Blender.
Blender, the 3D animation software.
The very same. It's free, open source. And they use the original DICOM scans as a reference to manually refine the models, cleaning up edges, correcting inaccuracies, ensuring it's truly anatomically precise.
So your anatomical knowledge is crucial at that stage. The quality control.
Absolutely. And more than that, you can also create structures from scratch that the AI might miss: tiny blood vessels, specific ducts like the common bile duct, ureters, things that need that expert hand.
Okay, that makes sense. Building the really fine details.
Right. They even use Python scripts to help get the DICOM images displayed easily in Blender for reference. And a practical point, they have to scale the body models down maybe 150th scale for an adult just to make them manageable to work with inside Blender.
And is this process efficient? Does it take ages?
Actually, it's pretty good. The source mentioned average times from about 7 minutes in a fast mode up to maybe 22 minutes in full resolution mode to get from the raw DICOM data to a workable model in Blender.
That's impressive. So for you, the anatomist listening, this process highlights just how vital your role is. You're literally translating medical images into functional virtual anatomy.
You're the bridge.
Yeah.
Your expertise ensures these training tools are clinically relevant, accurate, and actually useful for surgeons. Without that deep understanding, they're just fancy but ultimately flawed models.
And you mentioned Blender and Python. They're open source.
Yes.
Free.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a huge point. The whole system relies on free open source software.
So the barrier to entry is much lower.
Significantly lower. Medical professionals, anatomists like you, can get involved in development without needing super expensive proprietary software licenses. That accessibility is a massive incentive if you're thinking about moving into this field.
Okay, so we have these incredibly accurate anatomical models, thanks in large part to your potential input. Now, how do we make them, well, come alive? Make them interactive for a simulation.
Right. That's the next step. Taking that detailed static data and making it dynamic. And that's where modern game engines like Unreal really shine. They bring the immersion.
How do they do that? What kind of features are we talking about?
Well, think about things like displaying real-time data. In a game, it might be a car's speedometer. In a surgical sim, it could be the patient's heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen saturation, all updating live on screen.
Okay, dynamic feedback.
Exactly. Or changing the appearance of tissues in real time, maybe showing inflammation, or how tissue reacts when it's cut or cauterized. Game engines have clever ways to handle this efficiently, assigning unique properties to different tissues without bogging down the system.
So you can have lots of detail without grinding to a halt.
Precisely. They use techniques to render huge, complex scenes like detailed anatomy very efficiently. Think high-fidelity organs, intricate vessel networks, all running smoothly. They can even project information onto surfaces, like showing blood flow patterns or highlighting specific anatomical landmarks without needing super complex lighting calculations.
So these game engine tricks, they basically let the computer handle really complex visuals smoothly.
That's the core idea. It offloads a lot of the heavy lifting to the graphics card, the GPU. This means you get both runtime efficiency, a smooth simulation, and it makes creating the content easier too.
Which means the highly detailed anatomical models that you help create can actually be used effectively in an immersive, realistic simulation. Your input directly impacts that final user experience.
Absolutely. And connecting this back to the bigger picture, the incredibly rich anatomical data you provide gets transformed into these interactive training environments. The possibilities get even wider when you think about integrating real-world geospatial data, too.
Geospatial data, like maps.
Yeah, think about using plugins like ESRI or Cesium within Unreal. You could potentially build simulations set within accurately mapped real hospitals or even plan procedures considering regional anatomical variations based on geographic data.
Wow. So training, that's specific not just to the procedure, but maybe even the location.
The potential is huge. It takes planning and training to a whole new level of realism.
Okay, let's bring this home. For someone listening, maybe an anatomy student, maybe an experienced anatomist looking for new direction, what does all this tech, all this potential mean for you?
I really think this is a genuine game changer for surgical training and for anatomists. That PMC source put it perfectly. These systems create high-quality data sets for simulations, enhancing training, planning, research, the whole field.
And the direct impact you can have.
It's massive. By getting involved in designing these simulations, processing the data, you, the anatomist, bring irreplaceable medical expertise. This can actually reduce development costs and speed things up significantly.
Because you understand the anatomy intimately already.
Exactly. It's not just about knowing how to use the software. It's about that deep clinical understanding you possess. That's the unique value. You ensure the tools aren't just technically clever, but medically sound and effective.
So this is a really clear call to action then. If you have that passion for human anatomy and maybe a spark of interest in technology, this world of high-tau surgical simulation, it's booming.
Absolutely. It's a field that desperately needs your skills.
We'd really encourage you to look into roles at these innovative companies. Your precision, your understanding of anatomical relationships, how you interpret complex medical images. These are exactly the skills they need to build the next generation of life-saving training tools.
It's more than just a job.
It really feels like a journey, doesn't it? Playing, learning, and genuinely transforming patient care.
Imagine that future. A world where every single surgeon can practice complex operations in a totally accurate virtual environment before they touch a real patient. Safer for everyone.
And that future is being built, in part, by anatomical specialists like you.
That's the potential. It's incredibly exciting.
It really is. What an amazing deep dive into this critical role for anatomists in shaping the future of surgery. Your expertise isn't just needed, it's driving medical innovation.
So the final thought to leave you with, how could your specific perspective, your unique way of seeing the intricate details of the human body, unlock the next big breakthrough in immersive surgical learning? How can you help bridge that gap between knowing the anatomy and mastering the procedure?
Keep exploring, keep asking questions.
And keep connecting those dots between anatomy and technology.